As an artist, did you ever sacrifice parts of your identity to fit into a space? Why or why not? Okay. We got Omari on the mic.
So, by the way, I'm one of the multi-night winners too. So.
Okay. So that's that.
It's something I failed to mention is my phenomenal poetry group, Third Eye Open.
Flash.
Opened a lot of doors nationally for poetry. We had the first poetry mixtape ever made. But there was a situation with my group where we recorded our first album in my brother Johnny Audible studio, and I wrote a poem that my group rejected because they felt it was too politically charged. And so I allowed myself to take a step back instead of fighting for my poem. Fighting for my baby. I wrote it. It was mine. I tell you, if you ever are really completely in love with your craft, somebody broke into my car once, and I was more worried about them stealing my notebooks than my car, because that's how galvanized I was with my art. So I sacrificed the poem because the group thought I would be bringing the feds down on us and get us followed. And then the following album, one of my group members wrote a very similar poem with the same political charge in it, and the group allowed that poem to go on the album. And I said at that moment, I'm not mad at them, but never again will I sacrifice myself in a way that makes me feel lesser or makes me feel second guessed by anybody else when it comes to my craft. I'll accept criticism, but I won't accept someone censoring or rejecting my work based on their fears. So that was the time I had that experience.
Thank you for that.
So I feel like I sacrifice everything to be in these spaces. I felt like the life that I was living before I came into these spaces wasn't really necessarily truly who I was. And so I was like, fuck this job, fuck everything that I'm doing outside of poetry. And then it was like, yeah. And then a year later, the Detroit Poetry Society was founded. And then my whole life became poetry. Everything that I did, you know what I'm saying? Like everything that I did was poetry. And this has been one of the biggest blessings that I've ever just had the privilege of receiving. Just being able to have a community that embraced me enough to where I felt comfortable enough to be like, fuck all this shit, I feel like this is worth it. And this is before I even knew poets was making money. You know what I'm saying? Like, and following the power of your voice can take you everywhere.
Ashe.
So, yeah, that's yes, I sacrificed everything that I was.
One single rose on the mic. Thank you for that, Sheezy.
So I was about to sacrifice my voice in an audition. There were a group of Europeans here. They were looking for someone to rap and do spoken word for a production. And they were here from Amsterdam. So I got the call to go to the audition. And at that time, I only had one spoken word piece that was more of a rap. And that was 40 Niggas Deep. And I'm like, I'm not gonna go in this room with these Europeans and do 40 Niggas Deep.
They probably would have liked it.
So when I got in the room with these Europeans, I performed 40 Niggas Deep.
Okay, what's next?
And they called me the next day to tour Europe
Uh-huh.
for
Uh-huh.
I don't know how many. I was over there in 2012 about 10 times with the production. It was called Detroit Dealers, and they paid me a shitload of money to do 40 niggas deep.
Wow. That's a good poem.
Yeah, I've been trying to retire that piece for years, but I cannot. So that's just that one that I'm going to be performing until the day that I die. But never compromise your art or compromise your position. Stand firm in that. Whatever it is that's on your heart, bring it out.
Yeah,
and if that's what you're feeling, if the universe is telling you to do it, do it. And you will be surprised at the doors that will open. That door opened for me to start writing plays. So if I hadn't got the balls to do 40 niggas deep, I would not be doing as much as I am doing poetically at this time. So just stay true to the word and true to yourself. And the art is never going to lead you in the wrong direction.
All right, Ashe.
I'm glad that you brought up the artist from Amsterdam, because a few years, I don't know, it's been more than a few years, we had artists from Amsterdam contact me because they have found some of the early books of Broadside Press that were in the Shrine of the Black Madonna bookstore. And we're talking the early works of Don Lee, who became Hakimana Booty, who talked about Think Black, Nikki Giovanni, Nigga Can You Kill, Nigga Can You Kill. So, I mean, they were like, we love the energy here. And what a lot of folks don't realize is that Detroit was a hub of activism and strong writers. And Dudley Randall published many of the black poets in the country who no other publishing house would publish. So we came right out of the Black Power movement, publishing strong political poems talking about the situations that were going on not only in Detroit but around the world. But I wanted to touch on the point of sacrificing an identity, because I'm coming from an African American Filipino perspective, but I've never compromised anything about who I was. Even when I was writing full time, people said, well, what do you do for a living? And I said, I'm a poet. And they said, no, for real, what do you do? And I said, I'm a poet. And I was like, that's what I was doing, and then when I get into the publishing world and was representing the union, I was with the National Writers Union. I was one of the co-chairs of the diversity committee for the National Writers Union, representing all genres of writers in the United States to get their voices heard and get them paid, including journalists and stuff. But when I started getting published, the world put me in two groups as an African American poet, and then I was published in the first Asian Pacific Islander anthology in the country of Southeast Asians. So then I became, I'm now a Filipino or Asian poet. So, that's just how the world is looking at me and categorizing me depending on where I go, right? But that's how you could get your identity kind of compromised. The publishing world and the people that are booking you are looking at you and they're listening to you. And they can tell you, or ask you, don't read this poem. You have to make a decision within yourself to stand by your poetry. And you make that decision on whether you want to get paid by that entity or that business.